podcast. I am Nate, and today we have Hex, Kite, Story Mark, and Echoes. Hey guys, how's it going?
Life is sweet for the most part. How are we
Nice.
doing, folks?
Doing well.
Yeah,
Yeah, doing fine.
Yeah, pretty constructive weekend for me. So yeah, can't complain. All right, yeah. So today going through been a while, but we're back again. Today we're going through a topic about romance dynamics. So I think that romance dynamics exploring the characters through intimacy and bonds. I believe since this is Kite's topic, would you like to probably just introduce it?
Sure. So, I wanted to talk about this in particular because I feel romance is actually one of the more underrated aspects of writing. And I know that kind of sounds like a bit of a contradiction considering how popular the romance genre is. But I think people's idea of romance is a bit limited in how we perceive it. This mostly just comes down to the typical Hollywood or how most people see anime, among other things. They kind of just see romance as just a typical, the will they, won't they, or are they going to hold hands, or is there just going to be a lot of drama? I feel romance has a lot more to offer rather than just that. So I figure that I wanted to have a conversation about that to kind of delve into the more, dare I say, neglected aspects of it, and just to kind of get over the ultimate end goal to see these characters by the end. I think there's more to it than that. Because as much as you want to see characters get together at the end, I feel the journey is one of the more underappreciated aspects.
I want to for you.
Sure.
All right. When you mentioned those specific ones, like when it comes to romance, what all romantically have you experienced in stories beyond those specifically anime or the Hollywood thing? Because I've seen multiple different ones and I've seen many different interpretations approaches. So that's why I'm just curious, more like since we're very genre to genre, how it's handled.
So you're mostly asking like what examples I've seen that kind of shake things up in comparison to what I normally see within Hollywood and anime?
Yeah, combination, what would you say as the normal one and what you typically see, then outside of that, so for a good comparison to start off with.
So let's see here. Let me kind of lean into this. So I suppose the one that you can kind of refer to, but I kind of feel it's one of the better examples. I feel like when you look into Beauty and the Beast and everything, I feel that's kind of my standard on how I kind of like to approach most romances, because we know Beast and Belle are going to get together at the end of it, but a good chunk of the movie is getting to know them as they are as individuals and what happens when they come together. I feel that's probably the ideal. That's how it should be handled. But for most things, I don't know, I hate to bring up Twilight, but it's kind of the fastest shorthand that I can point to. A lot of folks will point to Twilight, the whole, this pair, they're kind of not good for one another. We know that they're not good for one another. But my thing is, I kind of think when people mention that they're not good for each other angle, we don't necessarily get much of a description as to why. It's obvious that they're not good for each other, but what exactly are the nuances as for that?
A lack of chemistry.
What now?
A lack of chemistry. I mean,
exactly.
Actually, with what you mentioned, Beauty and the Beast and Twilight, they're the exact same structure. They are the exact same stupid structure.
This is
something I plan to go over in, I don't know, I think 3 weeks from now or something like that on my channel, whatever. There's multiple structures for romance. I really hate when people reduce romance to just being romance alone when there's multiple substructures. I typically work with 3 of them: Cinderella structure, Beauty and the Beast structure, and Sleeping Beauty structure.
Exactly. Because within the Sleeping Beauty structure, the main couple only interact for a good 5 minutes out of the total screen time when you think about it.
That's not really what the Sleeping Beauty structure itself is about. This is a small preview for stuff to come soon now. Let me just pull up my notes real quick. Go on.
Take the wheel. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you don't mind sharing, I'd appreciate that, because I would say I know, the general gist of the stories, but I'm interested in what you mean exactly.
Yeah, that's why I figured I should define these real quick. Just give me a sec, because Let me pull this up since I was not really planning to today.
Yeah, I do have some notes that I do want to bring up as well. I have looked over a few things. The reason I specifically chose Twilight and Beauty and the Beast, because like Mark mentioned, structurally they are very much the same. The difference, though, is how they choose to go about exposing these characters to these feelings to begin with. Because within Twilight, it's like these two are supposed to get together. The ending is already written. Now we're just kind of trying to get there. But Beauty and the Beast, you notice that there's a bit of a pattern. Like there's like there's kind of like a more even structure. Like we have Belle interacting with the Beast and Belle and Beast interacting with her. They then go off to interact with other characters who are facilitating bringing them closer. But they're not necessarily being brought closer because the plot demands it. They're coming together because fundamentally speaking, they have a lot in common. Belle is something of an outcast within her village because she just does not fit the idea of a typical woman in that village. And Beast, well, he's the Beast. He can't fit in anywhere in normal society. Hell, normal society tries to get him killed near the end of the movie, and normal society fundamentally abandons Belle, technically, unless she capitulates to Gaston. So we have this discussion to think of, and we have this chemistry coming in. Bella and Edward, ironically enough, her name is also Bella or Belle. Funny to think about for a second, huh? So, like, these two characters, Bella and Edward, we know again that they're supposed to be getting together, but you cannot for the life of me begin to describe anything in the way of chemistry that they have. The most that they have in common is that they're very destructive.
I mean, I can explain the attraction and the giant appeal of it. For the longest time, I didn't understand it, and it clicked with me eventually. Like, it doesn't appeal to me specifically, but I am not the intended audience for it.
Right.
This goes to what I mentioned with the structures. So let's do some definitions real quick.
Mm-hmm.
With me keeping this very simple, and I'm grabbing this from Story Structure Architect by Victoria Lynn Schmidt, PhD.
Nice.
The Cinderella's romance structure: the heroine falls in love with the hero first and is left at his mercy, so to speak. Hello, Morgana. The heroine falls in love with the hero first and is left at his mercy, so to speak. Even if she is an independent woman at heart, her actions are centered on the one she loves and whether or not he will love her back. She often is the story's focus on the hero and how he's feeling. Like, this is typically where she's trying to blah blah blah. Hero first, is that left at his? Yeah, where she's like stuff. There's the rags to riches story, the romantic rescue type stuff. Beauty and the Beast structure, which Morgana, please stay quiet. The Beauty and the Beast structure, which I didn't get at first for the longest time, but I understand a bit more now. The Beauty and the Beast romance structure: the hero falls in love with the heroine first and is left at her mercy. The story often focuses on how the heroine is feeling. The hero is usually an extremely powerful man in every area of his life except for where she is concerned. Very often, his whole life depends on the decision to love him back and to save him from his meek existence. The Phantom of the Opera comes to mind. In this one, romantic themes that explore these are independence. The character desires something different from people she previously dated, or desires someone completely different from herself. She wants a life change and needs someone who is already where she wants to go, or love versus honor. This theme concerns where the character wants to do versus what she feels she should do when considering others' needs and her duty to her family. There's a major obstacle in a relationship, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, pretty much this is the one where, as I can best sum it up, there's a guy who has tons of power and stuff like that. This woman who probably is pretty ordinary, plain or whatever, like average, ordinary person. Oh no, this guy's attracted to it. Then the appeal is the appeal is the fact that pretty much he has all this stuff that can offer, but he's also like this whole darker something to him or whatever. And like she technically heals him through empathy and stuff like that and blah, blah, blah. And also ultimately there's some bits with, how to put this best.
I think you could kind of call this kind of like the whole I can change him for the better. I can make him better.
Yeah,
I can fix
that's something up. That's something up quite well.
Which, funnily enough, has really seen an explosion over the past couple of years when you think about it, huh? It's turned into a situation.
I've seen it a lot.
That turns into a meme a lot, yeah.
It's existed for a long, long time. It's actually the most popular of the romance genre since, as I find, as a whole, I've talked about this a long time ago in a video I deleted. Well, I just hid because I got to do a better quality of it. but pretty much Beauty and the Beast structure tends to be the most popular. And since women read romances most, this appeals to various women and shit like that for various reasons.
Right.
Like not everybody, but like it does for plenty.
Right.
And
because
of beauty structure real quick, it's when both the heroine and the hero fall in love at the same time, which puts them on equal footing. They save each other through mutual love. Romeo and Juliet is often cited for this, but I'm going to use real quick because I will always push this agenda. Spy Family falls into this example.
Yeah.
Right. I can nod to that myself. Because honestly, the way how I see it, there's going to be some aspects to this conversation that I am probably not going to be able to comprehend the way I would like to, because like you said, Twilight is not written for me. I'm familiar with Twilight, I've read all 4 books, but there are some aspects of it that I fundamentally am going to be forever disconnected to, which is why I feel, regardless of how infamous Twilight is, I still think it's a valid point to I still think it's a valid example to mention, regardless of how you might feel about the lack of chemistry between Edward and Bella. Because like you've mentioned, what draws people in here is the fact that Edward himself is this broody, cut-off guy. He's not necessarily the most, dare I say, hip or up-to-date. And then here's Bella, who's meant to kind of be like an audience stand-in for the people who are reading this, to kind of find find their way of capturing this person's heart, or at least trying to make their world a bit better.
It's I hate to put it this way, it's the bad boy appeal. In that, pretty much it's a guy who can do all this stuff and everything, and though because he's focused on her, that means he can do this stuff for her, but he won't do it to her. But he can still do this stuff. And
Exactly.
It's that underlying sense of like there's a danger here, but if they're like with me, like if they're doing it for my sake, it's like
it's a weird psychology.
Again, it's not my genre, but I mean the numbers speak for themselves.
And not only,
on the flip side for guys, if you want to appeal to us, that's why just make a girl like this is one reason why I'll make fun of the harem stuff. It's like, hey, she's just nice to you and she acknowledges you and stuff like that, and that's how you appeal to guys. Like each pretty much sex has their own things that appeal to them. I mean, there's also like there's stuff that appeals to us on a base level, and then like there's all our own individual tastes and stuff like that from what I've found. But that's like if I very simplify, we do reductive stuff with it.
Right. Right, because like I mentioned before, there's going to be a fundamental difference between the sexes where we just can't really get why it appeals. However, this is why Twilight was like the fastest shorthand that I can mention. Because regardless of however I feel about Twilight, the fact remains is people use it as a shorthand, or people use it as a clear example for strong romance portrayed within literature. Hell, there's also 50 Shades of Grey, which again, funnily enough, is a Twilight fanfiction.
Basically,
it's the same thing as the Beauty and the Beast structure. Like as I said, you take this guy who's this bad boy type and everything. I like you putting this as the I can fix him appeal and stuff like that. That's pretty much, it's less even like 100% fix him. It's I can tame him. Oh god, I hate that word.
Yeah, basically.
I can tame him.
It goes along that line, yeah. It does go along that line.
I hate using that word for it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I was wondering if I could just chime in a little bit, if you
don't
mind.
Please, thank you.
Yeah. So, to be completely honest, the funny thing about Twilight is I actually have never read it. I was told when I was younger at the time, I was like, oh, you gotta go be older, and I never read it. Anyway, but regardless, it's essentially I don't know if you've heard about trashy romance novels, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
I feel like Twilight, or at least the whole thing, is from my knowledge, is a very good example of a trashy romance novel. Where essentially you have the super brooding dude who's like stoic and like, cares about nobody, blah blah, and then there's just a normal girl, and there's like you have the aspects of the forbidden romance. You have like, okay, I want to get to know you better, because you're so mysterious and so interesting to me. So, and then it goes more than that, but essentially, you have technically like it could be the you have the what do you call it? Normal flirting with supernatural, which makes sense. You have very opposite dynamics. They're pretty much coming from completely different places.
And
they come
technically
together
speaking,
somehow,
and
and then
technically speaking, by what you're mentioning, there are these other aspects that are keeping them apart, like either society or the fact that they may be in different realms altogether. So how in
yeah,
the world are
exactly.
exactly?
Mm.
It's a danger appeal.
And and
Yeah.
essentially like I mean, I'm not a Twilight fangirl, so I cannot understand exactly, but I'm assuming that people really like that like forbidden romance aspect,
Yep.
which is
Yep.
probably
Mm.
the biggest appeal
Yep.
of it. And why it, even I don't know if it's to this day, but when it was very popular, it's very popular. I watched the first movie, so I remember a little bit of it. But yeah, that's pretty much the whole thing. And not obviously there are better works of romance out there if you really
Mhm.
wanted to, but it did go into the mainstream and it's very much a trashy romance novel. So
Hmm.
I think we'll put it in that genre.
I would say with it, and like I use those structures as a shorthand, the Beauty and the Beast structure as a shorthand for, because they have those same elements and stuff like that. I think stuff like Twilight or even 50 Shades of Grey, they managed to hit on the base level. It's just that when you go beyond that base level and if you do want to analyze it further, you realize how quickly it breaks down. It's just that it's satisfying genre appeal related stuff. It's like it's the
Yeah,
same for any
exactly.
genre. Like, okay, this one real quick. I've been reading a little thing known as the Cradle series and stuff like that as of late. It only has genre appeal, and that's why I find it breaking down beyond, like, it just has progressive fantasy genre appeal, and I find it one of the most mid things I have ever read, and that's why I think if you aren't into the specific genre and isn't appealing to you and stuff like that, the genre, like, stuff will break down for you really quick.
Right.
And that's true for
exactly
romance
it.
and like why the different romance structures matter and like who you're trying to appeal to and how.
And I think that's why I mentioned earlier that some aspects of what I actually appreciate within romance are what's really underrated in this case, because I do like the idea of characters getting together in the end as much as the next person does, but there are some cases where I want to see what comes after it, and I want to see the satisfaction of building up to it, because it's not as simple as just them like making out or having sex or anything. I want to enjoy the interaction, like the wordplay. Like I want to enjoy that, because I feel that's where I start to lose a lot of the fun when I check out romance stuff.
I agree. That's why I say when it comes to chemistry, which actually I made a video on it, I think. Yes, I did. What writers should know about chemistry. I did a whole thing on that basically. Like when I simplify, what did I say? Let me look at my logic. What I said. I'm gonna pull up my script real quick because I can't remember exactly what I said. Chemistry.
No worries. I do agree that chemistry is essentially romance's bread and butter. It lives or dies by chemistry.
Yeah,
and I think
I would say that.
Yeah.
I would say what I find interesting about that is because that's the aspect that like I feel that helps flesh it out. That bleeds a lot into friendships and just general relationships, anyways.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
It's that building that up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually part of what I defined. Which here's what I said in my thing. Anyway, chemistry. What is it? Simple. A special connection between two people that the audience can see and feel. It could be different sides of their personality. It could be vulnerabilities. It could be forgotten memories or some kind of habit. This goes beyond being attracted to each other or having compatible life goals. It's the little things that characters do when they interact. Then I went into like tactics and stuff like that and like how I came up with like making chemistry and blah, blah, blah. People can check out that video if they want. But yeah, that's the basic I would say about it. Like it's about pretty much two people, like how these two people actually interact with each other and so on. And like how they get along. And even when you don't get along, like how you solve problems together and so on and so on. Like, problems are just, no matter what, any relationship is going to have problems here or there. It's how you go about solving them that matters.
Right. Yeah. And that's part of the package, or rather I feel that that's what should be a part of the package, because fundamentally not every aspect of your personalities are going to click together. Like for me, it's not necessarily the parts that mesh. Sometimes it's the parts that don't mesh that keep me interested. It's like you have, let's say for example, you have a very soft-spoken character. He's not very aggressive. He tends to keep to himself, right? And you have his partner, like be it man or woman. I don't really think the gender really matters in this situation. They're a little bit more outgoing. They're rambunctious. They're in your face. They're the kind of person who likes to pull pranks on someone else, or they actively go out of their way to get a rise out of the person that they love. Those personalities are so diametrically opposed that you have to wonder, how in the world do they make it work? Well,
I addressed that very thing in the episode, and it's not as clear cut as you might like. It might seem okay. I'm gonna quote. I hate when I have to revisit a subject I kind of already talked about. I said this. There's a little something. Blah 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 blah. Here we go. This isn't the only trick I've come up with, though, which leads us to the thing I wanted to share most: the principle of bonding and the principle of separation. There's a little something that comes from Dr. Stephen Rice's research into personality. He found that there are 16 basic... Whatever, I've just talked about the 16 basic design before. Yeah. So, for example, let's take the topic of intelligence. The success of a relationship, in that case, depends more on how curious each partner is as opposed to how smart they happen to be. Two curious partners result in both of them enjoying intellectual conversations and activities together, even if one is notably smarter than the other. If one is curious and the other isn't, they'll be incompatible even if they're both smart. The curious partner will want to have intellectual conversations much more, while the non-curious one will find it boring, leading to dissatisfaction. And in the case of, because it uses in the book, the example of like someone who seems extroverted and someone who seems introverted and stuff like that. In that case, like it's less that they don't, so that this person brings out and satisfies this desire that already existed in them anyway. Because if someone is actually like has a different contrast between them, it's just going to annoy people and stuff like that, and it's going to drive them apart. So like you're going to actually, it'll be a case of they seem different on the surface, but it goes back to what I said at the very beginning with chemistry being, it could be different sides of their personality factor. So more or less, it's less they're actually different, and more this person helps bring out this side of their personality and helps satisfy that desire and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So that's a very good point. I wanted to bring up another quick example. It might not necessarily be too related to what we're talking about, but I think it's still relevant. So I'm going to talk about Xenogears for a second. Don't worry, I'm not going to talk about the crazy philosophical shit that it has going for it, because I could write an entire novel about that. What I'm getting at is Xenogears has a very interesting conversation in regards to men and women. So in Xenogears, there's two angels. Each of them only have one wing, right? And of course, one has more masculine features and the other has more feminine features. The idea for Xenogears is to line up the pieces that are not there. So when the angels come together, they form one being. So the idea is, fundamentally speaking, we're already fractured human beings, or fractured beings in general. So we need someone else to kind of line our missing pieces up.
This is some Greek idea. This is actually, this comes from the Grecian idea of love, of like relationships. That
there we go. Exactly.
It's probably where the term "the other half" comes from, I guess.
Yeah, it is.
Right. So I feel that when you have these disparate personalities together, what you end up having is kind of like a longing to kind of fill that spot that you don't have, and your partner can end up filling up those spots for you, whether they're insecurities or personal failures. Your partner is able to kind of compensate for the weakest. So basically, you're kind of like in a symbiotic relationship to make your lives better. It doesn't. I hope it doesn't really sound like you're actively using your partner to do that, but it's more like your partner is there to kind of help you to cross the gaps that you cannot cross yourself.
No, I agree. It's
and vice versa. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a vice versa. It's not a one-sided thing. That's what makes relationship work. It's this is me being this is something I'm kind of critical about, like real world dating and stuff like that, which I think many people should learn, that you mentioned with that whole complimentary thing. It's one reason I hate the whole conversation of what does you bring to the table and blah 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 stuff.
Lord, I hate that.
But yeah, as a whole, that's why I'd say like the idea is you want like both parties are bringing something to things and everything like that, and like that's why I would say like a really good relationship is overall complementary to both parties and stuff like that, not just one trying to seek something out of the other. But yes, like everyone, you do want to bring something to it and everything like that. And you're also looking to get, like, you want to be able to bring stuff to it, and you also you gain stuff from it, because if you're just giving, then you have no self-respect and stuff like that, and that leads to simping. But on the other side, you don't want to be someone who's just taking and everything like that. And
yeah.
Yeah, and when you look at it that way, like that's every healthy relationship ever, friendships, families, everything. It's a back and forth.
Yeah, it's
In one way or another. Yeah,
reciprocating.
it may not be obviously equal if you look at it, I don't know, mathematically, but there is a back and forth. There is a benefit, reason why you still want to, stay with that person unless you have no self-respect and you're, putting yourself out there for the, silly reasons. If the relationship's healthy, it's usually because there's a back and forth. It's just, it's natural.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not to say that whenever you're writing a romance or anything that you can't think about things like that. Because if you're dealing with a world where characters are like living in poverty and everything, you probably do want to think about that. It's one of the reasons why arranged marriages or arranged marriage dynamics are so common, because it's a situation of a character has a chance to get out of poverty by basically sacrificing any freedom or any agency of their own by securing their future by marrying someone that they may or may not love. However, there's still an opportunity for tension even in all of that. Like, for example, Blue Eye Samurai,
Fun
the
show.
the character played by Brenda Song. I cannot believe I forgot her name. I feel bad.
Mizu?
No, that's not Mizu.
Oh, wait, I know. Let me pull her up.
The other chick.
Wait, the one who realized she was being a spoiled brat and life really wasn't as bad as she thought it was.
Yeah, Akemi, right. So Akemi is a fascinating character. Like, she starts out the story committed to Tengen. She's committed to him the moment the show opens up. However, she starts to open herself up to the person that she's been arranged to marry. And even though a lot of it just kind of comes down to her own ambitions, it's very clear that she starts to develop some degree of feelings for him because she sees the person that he is underneath the title. He's a very awkward, very closed off. He doesn't really know how to speak to people without stuttering. Like, he has a nervous stutter about him, and she's there to kind of help him to be able to feel a little bit more confident in himself. Not necessarily to make him a man, but to kind of make him realize that hidden potential that he has in him. Like, this arranged marriage thing could have gone in any other way, but the fact that these two are kind of reflections of one another kind of adds into what I mentioned before. There is an inherent chemistry to the both of them, even though the relationship started out very, very sour at first. I mean, we're talking about a guy who literally killed a bird that she was being friendly with, and they fed the bird to her. She took it as an insult, as we all should. But for him, he doesn't really know how else to reach her, so he does weird stuff like that. And again, if this were within any other show, this would have just been an abusive tendency from this character. And it kind of is depending on how you see it. But it really wasn't intentional on his end. He just doesn't know how to open himself up to people without coming across as a weirdo. So when you eventually get the scene where they do start opening up to each other and Akemi is the one who initiates it, it's actually one of the best sequences in the entire show. And I feel it's a poster example of the kind of romance that I really, really love, or just character dynamics that I am into.
What was the show name called again?
Blue Eye Samurai.
It's on
Netflix.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's 8 episodes, I think. I highly recommend it.
Indeed.
And I'm waiting for season 2. It's
you and me both, my man.
2. I'm like,
all I can say to you right now, Mark, is London.
Yeah, so I'm hyped for that. But yes, actually, speaking of Blue-Eyed Samurai, let's use another relationship from it real quick. This show where things can easily go wrong. The one with Mizu in the backstory with oh my god, what was her husband? Blue-Eyed Samurai. Looking up her husband's name.
You mean are you talking about her and Tengen?
Not maybe.
Is it the one in the flashback? I don't know.
No, flashback.
Her husband.
Mizu's husband.
Right.
Flashback. Let's see if I can find his name. Mikio.
Assim. I believe that was his name, right?
Sure. I'm looking at it right now. So, like in that case, it's actually a perfect example of how things can go wrong with certain desires. Like in his case, one of his was insecurity. Like
right,
as we saw when talk about the 16 basic desires and all that stuff, right? Because I mentioned that there's one desire that you don't want to actually have people have a matching one on that, and that is Oh crud! What are the 16 basic desires? Oh my god! What are the what's that? I can't remember what it's called. I know what it is. Acceptance. Okay. Like he seemed like he had a higher desire for acceptance and everything like that, and like he kind of got put in a position where he started feeling insecure about stuff and various things. Like we could see that in bits and pieces in the like throughout it and so on, here and there. And so like when his was triggered a bit like that, I don't think that really factored into how he didn't handle stuff well and everything like that.
Right, because for him, the thing that triggered his little thing was the fact that Mizu managed to best him in combat.
Yeah, I mean, she was going way more hardcore than necessary.
Oh yeah. We'll be honest. She may have gone a little extra, but his reaction to kind of just being outclassed again, but this time by his own wife, it was a huge blow to his pride that may or may not have led to the tragic events that happened after that. So this is kind of like the opposite extreme of what we.
What happened?
By your partner. However, you have the opposite experience where when your partner becomes better at something than you are, it triggers that inferiority complex in you, and instead of you trying to find solace in the fact that your partner can make up for you, you can't live with that because it feels like either A, you are not providing something, or B, it just makes you feel worse as a human. So Blue Eye Samurai is very much the opposing element to the subject that I mentioned. But seriously, Mark, thanks for mentioning it though, because I almost forgot about it, honestly.
Yeah, I didn't know you watched it, Kai. I remember talking about it, but I don't think you watched it at that time.
Oh, I mean, I have plans to cosplay Mizu at some point. Yeah, so it's been on my he's on my wish list.
You know, if I were to pitch in, I think like my favorite type of romances are like the ones that are a bit more unusual or something, but also I guess the forbidden romances. I think that there's a there's I don't know, something very unique about that I really like. Biggest example I could think of is Domestic Girlfriend with with the whole.
I've heard of it. I haven't watched it.
Oh, has anyone watched Domestic Girlfriend?
Wait,
no,
I've not watched it, but I think I know what it is.
I know through Giguk about it.
Yeah, Giga.
Yeah.
No, but actually, I personally have felt that it's probably it's probably the most serious take on the whole subject of, I guess, it's not really even, I don't know, it's not incest, but it's still like, you know,
what?
Whole... Wait, yeah, I thought you guys.
Welcome to anime, my friend.
Wait,
I don't.
Okay.
Oh, I was thinking about something entirely different. What are we talking about here?
Okay,
now for something.
Domestic Girlfriend. Okay, here's the story of Domestic Girlfriend. Short, the premise of it. Right, there's the student who is basically in love with his teacher. Right, and basically he's always been in love with her, but he just never, you know, he never has the, I guess, the heart to say he loves her. And also there's like the whole, he's a student, she's a teacher kind of thing, right? But one day I think he does like a mix. He does like what is it called? A mixer with his friends, and you know, they meet like three other. What was it? It was like his two friends and three girls. They like do a mixer, something like that together. And the girl that he's like matched up with, she just decides like, hey, you want to get laid or something, and they basically just get laid that night, right? Then next day, his father, basically, he's a single father, basically tells his son that he has fallen in love with a new woman, and that woman has her own children, and they're gonna move in. The two children that woman has, it's the girl that he had a one-night stand with and his teacher. So,
okay.
Oh wow, that's
romance.
That's weird. Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the premise. That's the, I guess that's
just an awkward way.
So this is very awkward because he's in love with his teacher, but there's also that girl that he had a one-night stand with. Okay, and yeah, and I think, but that's what I mean. Like it's you know, the whole sibling relationship, but not really, but also, you know, all that stuff. But it's so, I think, like when you read through it, it's so well written. Actually, it takes it in a very serious manner. It's not like done for the sake of I don't know.
It's not a gimmick. It's not just done for like, hey guys, this
it's
is
not
crazy,
a gimmick.
Right?
It's actually the author and the characters themselves take the entire romance between them and all that very seriously, especially like later on, like when the teacher kind of finds out, or like when the teacher learns that the guy loves her. She's honestly trying her best to not reciprocate because she actually likes him as well, but she's not trying to be in a relationship with him at all. Because what was it? Because if they do get into a relationship, it's basically social suicide or something like that. There's like this one particular scene that I remember from that show, which was so well done. But basically, they're by the beach, and like he confesses to her one more time and stuff. She's like, "Okay, so you really truly love me, right?" Then she takes his hand, and they're going into the water, and he's like, "Wait, what are you doing?" They're going like deeper, right? And she's like, if you are gonna be with me, it's like we can be together. Like we should just die, basically, off ourselves, because this is the equivalent of how it would be like if we were in a relationship. We would basically it would be a social suicide. Like we would be like I don't know, we would have to remove our identities from society, leave our family behind, everything. It's like it would ruin us, basically. It's and I think it was one of the most, for me in the beginning, it was one of the more memorable scenes because of how serious the teacher takes it. I don't know, but it's super well done. I don't know. This is something I would actually recommend to people to watch or read.
Honestly speaking, it sounds compelling because when it comes to like forbidden romance, like a lot of it can come across as very, like fetishy depending on who you ask. And I kind of feel like if we kind of limit our understandings of stuff just based on like a fetishistic appeal, I kind of think that we're still kind of missing a point in the grand scheme, because what you're describing here, like, yeah, it's weird, it's borderline criminal too, depending if you want to go there. But
Japanese society, it's very criminal, probably.
Very, very criminal. I mean, for God's sake, you can't talk about Persona 5 without somebody mentioning the whole Kawakami thing for good reason. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to tell people.
One waifu though.
Yeah, like
I'm romance there.
Like I won't be the guy to tell you that you can't talk about the Kawakami thing, because let's be honest here. Yeah, that Kawakami is in yeah.
I was never attracted to her myself.
Oof. Well, it looks
How
like
could you say that.
Looks like you might have. Oh, never mind. I was about to say you dodged a bullet, Mark, but it looks like you're about to get shot because Hex isn't going to take it.
Makoto is the best option. Makoto is the best option. Her and Joker make the perfect sense. That is chemistry. Joker. You know what?
Okay. Just so you know, there are two bullets, but I think I'll let Hex take the shot. There are two bullets.
What?
Two bullets, because I agree with Hex. That's all.
Okay. What was the water?
Nah.
Oh no, I just man, I wanted to talk about something, but regardless, I had two things I wanted to talk about, so I wasn't sure.
You could talk about it. I think I've done my point, so you can go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So with I guess I'm just mentioning the incest type, right? When you see most incest type romances, right? They're typically cousin, stepchild, or something. Those are the most common, I think. But also, for very obvious reasons, it's very rare for it to be actual like incest between siblings or family members, right? Just because the fact that it's pretty much taboo in society for good reason. Not that it can be done well. It can be done well. It just depends. It's just very, very delicate.
Yeah.
Which is why, that's why you hear sometimes it can be done for a fetish. That is very much a thing, especially if you watch plenty of hentai. You'll see it a ton for reasons. You'll think some of it is for, what was it called? Something about like a son craving his mother or something. I don't know. Like that whole there's a word for it.
What complex?
Oedipus complex.
Yeah, Oedipus. Yeah. Like you'll think of that as well, but regardless, I do think it's something that is essentially you have to be careful with because it can go really well or really, really badly.
Right. Because
so it's essentially there's no really in between for it. But yeah, just wanted to talk about that because Hex brought it up. And the second thing was I actually want to ask all of you is what essentially is your favorite romance dynamic? Because essentially that would give us something to talk about. Like I guess I'll start off.
Oh no, you go first. Yeah, you go first, and I'll go.
Yeah, if you don't mind. So having read a ton of romances, primary BL, but I also read hetero and some Yuri. Is essentially I don't. I guess I'll say what I don't like. That's easier. What I don't like are anything involving very toxic relationships with very skewed power dynamics. I don't like violence. I don't like anything that is not consensual. I do not like people who bring down others and manipulate others. It just I think very typical thing. I think most people feel that way, but those are just a few things I don't like. And I respectively like the opposite. I like mutual consent. I like respect, kindness. I like people who are able to communicate as well. And also I mean, yeah, I just like things where essentially you get like good vibes overall. It's not that I don't like conflict, but conflict sometimes, as mentioned by Kai, is a necessary thing for growth, right? And that is not an issue in itself. It's more like how this person, does it lead to growth? Does it just lead to stagnation? It all depends on how it's done. But or
even degradation at that point. Isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And yeah, just having read so much, I've gotten to a point where I just try not to read too many toxic relationships because in general, it's just incredibly unpleasant. Essentially, it's one person essentially forcing the other down or dragging them through the mud. And every once in a while, I get the ones where essentially that person does that, and then that guy eventually goes through a redemption arc, which is its own story in itself. But regardless, I guess because of my feelings, I like romances that give good vibes. And also I also do not like anything involving drinking or drugs because that's not consensual. Yeah, that's it. All right, you guys could continue. Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see.
I
like big titty. I like big titty golf chicks. Anything, I'm joking, but let's see. For me, I actually do overall. I can read various stuff like that has screwed up dynamic. Like it varies depending on if I like it or not. It really depends on the writing. And like there's one I'm reading right now, which I go like, no, this is some screwed up stuff. I'm watching this for the train wreck. I am very invested in seeing this train wreck play out.
I know that feeling.
Entertainment in that, definitely.
That's the school days appeal right there.
Oh, yeah, basically.
Like my real life side is like, no, don't do that. That's a terrible thing to do. And I'm like, oh man, this is a train wreck. I gotta see how this is gonna fucking go. I want to see. Oh, this is not going to turn out well. I got to see how this is. But like personal appeal, let me. If I look over my favorite ships and stuff like that, I tend to like relationship. Really, I just like Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty, one I mentioned where it's just people like mutually care for each other and everything like that as a whole. And like I just like I guess this goes to what appeals to me most because when I think about even like real life relationships, I care most about actual personality and stuff like that because I'm like, no, I would have to be around this person all the time or deal with them. So I'd want someone like who brings peace into my life and like can like just vibe with me and stuff like that. And so like that's why I just like seeing the stories is like how two people just like mutually get along. Like one reason why I mentioned Spy Family is because I really like Lloyd and Yor in it because I'm like, no, they help each other out. They really do like. They're really compatible and make each other happy and everything like that, even if they don't exactly get it yet. But one of my favorite, or like another example, one of my favorite romances of all time, with my favorite story probably, Shadow Hearts with Yuri and Alice, and Alice.
One.
Oh wait, have you played it?
Not yet, but I plan to.
Yeah, it is amazing. I could go on and on about Shadow Hearts, but like I absolutely love their dynamic and so on. And like Alice, like they both help each other ultimately throughout it. Yuri's will do all kinds of stuff for her. She'll do stuff for him. There's so much I can go into, and like there's one scene I always like to just give people that I'm like, no, this is the best scene in the entire second game. Well, where Alice is, I can't go into it, but
and that's fine. But in the end, you like it a lot, right? And that's okay.
Yeah, it's like just seeing the dynamic because, like, I don't know, I just like seeing two characters support each other. Like, don't get me wrong, I can deal with all kinds of crazy stuff. I can like enjoy some train wrecks, depending. Like, I'm able to be fully aware that no, this is a train wreck. I know what I don't go, oh no, this is so great. I want someone like this. I'm like, no, I recognize how crazy it is. I'm self-aware. I can like discern the difference between fantasy and reality.
There you go. That's exactly what I was gonna say. Exactly how I was gonna say. I'm not too far off from you myself. I prefer relationships where both parties are able to grow and overcome struggles together. Like they're a pairing that manages to pick up for one another. They can help each other through the best and worst of times, even if their personalities are not 100% compatible. The fact that they still try the best that they can to make things better for themselves and others, that's usually the kind of dynamics that I appreciate. Because what you end up having is a pair that also, is everything okay over there?
Sorry.
Oh, it's your mic. It's like some background sounds in that.
Yeah, 1 second.
Yeah,
no, it's good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I tend to appreciate those dynamics where both people are able to, like I said before, complement the best and worst parts of one another. I use worst very, 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 very loosely here because that's not necessarily me saying that I am perfectly 100% okay with toxic relationships, but it's more like these are aspects of these characters that are kind of like held up or kind of downplayed depending on their partner. So I kind of like that. It's not necessarily that I want everything to kind of like fit together perfectly. I don't really think I don't even think the best relationships are like that.
No, I agree.
I was about to say, if it fit 100% perfectly, you would lose a lot of the appeal. It's them.
Yeah,
it's that conflict. The conflict doesn't have to be, again, like, it's not have to be toxic, but it's that conflict of them working things out and then not being 100%, but then putting the effort in because they see something there. That's what makes. I think that's what.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, you wouldn't want it to be 100%.
Yeah, because I agree on that as well. Just because, like, because I think unless if you're in a fairy tale, there's nothing that's perfect. So because of those flaws are what makes it better. Oh yeah,
I think that's part of what like is about making a relationship and romance relationship work. When you get past the whole getting together part, is learning how to work with those things, like pretty much learning how to negotiate through that stuff and everything like that. And
and in my case, the relationships that I actually like, I think this is a very underrated one. But I really do like like romance dynamics between the hero and villain. But they don't happen often. I don't think so.
Those can be like fun.
Those are
enemies to
super
lovers,
fun.
right?
Yeah, enemies to lovers. Yeah, exactly. I like this concept so much that I'm trying to implement it into my own works because I don't see it often in media. I can't even think of at the top of my head what's a good, maybe in Black Clover with one of the characters, but that villain character becomes kind of a side character later on. It's not even a main ship.
I can see the appeal to that because it's like, I guess like the way I see it is like love and hate is two sides of the same coin. Like someone you can really hate at one moment could be someone you really like, and it's almost partly because of maybe the hate you had at the beginning because you had such strong feelings for them, but then it got flipped. So yeah,
I think it's a very rare trope. Can you guys think of any examples?
I don't think it's rare actually, because let me point one out that you may know, Hex. Yeah. I don't remember you play Star Rail, right?
Yeah,
I've not played Star Rail.
Oh, you have not. Sorry. Oops. Anyway, but there's one that's very big in it, which is Dan Heng and Blade. Essentially, is very much enemies to lovers. If you squint a little, and then there's also Paladin, Zhongli, and Genshin. So it could be seen as, and there can be. I think Blade and Dan Heng is way better as an enemies to lovers example. But regardless, if you squint, as mentioned. It's not canon, but it's a very popular ship, is what I'm mentioning. But it's what I want to say, Hex, is that it's not uncommon, but it's definitely shippable. I don't know if it's common in canon as much, but I do think it's very popular when it comes to shipping because it's essentially very juicy.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Actually, I'm not sure you guys heard. I think there was a whole like Bella with Sukuna. Like
what?
Like, apparently that's a thing online. Where they're putting Belle from Beauty and the Beast with Sukuna.
Huh?
Oh, I remember.
Oh,
those.
yeah,
I know.
What?
Yeah, I know about those. I'm sorry, but
what are we talking about
here? Okay, guys, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry, but I'm in the camp where I actually find those to be some of the funniest shit on the planet, and I am perfectly okay with the ship. Just out of pure absurdity.
We're talking about crack ships now because like
this is a crossover ship right here.
Oof. Yeah, crossover. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
I'm calling it a crack ship.
I don't know. I think it's great. Like it is so outright ridiculous and stupid that I can actually kind of see it working. Belle is the kind of girl who would put up with Sukuna's shit long enough to the point where he would actually start to enjoy having her around. Not that I would ever advise anyone with a brain to date Sukuna, but
right the other way.
This is taking Beauty and the Beast structure too far. We've taken it too far.
That's why it works.
Sukuna's a monster. I hate Sukuna so much. God, I just thought.
Here's the thing about that. Just to keep on topic, just for a second more. You can rest assured knowing that Sukuna would probably hate you too.
Yeah.
I hate Sukuna as a character at this point too, but that's a whole other thing.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other thing. Yeah.
I do not like the writing surrounding Sukuna. Hates Sukuna so much.
I don't like Sukuna, but it's because of the fan base behind Sukuna. I don't like them.
That too, but I was on the side of a certain other character, and I was like, "Yeah, we're finally doing this." And then I'm like, "This is a cheap ending. What the heck? Off screen? Are you serious?
Get off screens."
I'm so tired. But yeah, actually, when we speak about this, I just thought we might. This wrapped around back to the topic, and what I think is one of the big appeals. I mentioned this in a whole episode I plan to remake, sort of. Whatever, when it comes to writing romance and the big appeal to it, and like, I've mentioned before that one of the reasons that we read stories is for characters and stuff like that. And there's like a third character within like two characters I've mentioned. The relationship itself is a character. And
now that's a take. I love it.
Yeah, like let me what did I say? I don't remember words make. I don't remember.
Like the relationship in and of itself, when you put it that way, it makes sense that it's a character. Because the thing is, the relationships that I think we can all agree that we like are the ones that are developed. But who else develops in a story? Characters do. So if you start to treat the relationship in and of itself as a character, then when you put it that way, it makes sense. The relationship dynamic.
They're building it together.
Yeah, the relationship in and of itself is also a character. So if you treat it that way and you don't treat it like a tertiary angle, that's probably why you can get so many intimate aspects. Because like if you try to go into like the fanfic sphere, the most common form of fanfic are romance or ships. And do you notice how much emphasis gets put on specific actions and specific stuff? That's not a coincidence. In fact, if you spend long enough within the fanfic sphere and you read enough of this stuff, you're going to see how it's easy to kind of see these relationships as characters in and of themselves. Even when you're wondering, like, would this ship even make any sense? Well, that's the point of the matter is for the person who's writing it to make it make sense. And little do you know, that's why the whole BL thing is so prominent in this conversation. That's why when you see a lot of the same sex stuff, when you find a lot of this stuff, even though it may not make necessarily a lot of sense to people who are on the straight side of things, you can still find yourself appreciating it because the person who is behind it is actively building this relationship in a specific manner, either using context from the stories or their own personal headcanons, which, if you ask me, in and of themselves are vital to the same conversation that we're having right now. because how people tend to interpret relationships within media or stories doesn't necessarily jive always with what the author has intended. Because fundamentally speaking, most ships, some of the most popular ships, are not the canon ships. That's not an accident, folks. That's not an accident.
Yeah, there's a lot of people going into like, oh, what if this character, was with this character? So I can see that. Yeah. So I'll quickly just, I ain't got much to say on this one, but I guess we just go through like what my likes and dislikes are. I guess, I don't know, my dislikes, a lot of them, I would say anything that's really just like superficial, like, guy music, like we was kind of talk about like the whole, Hollywood ones. I think a lot of us can agree on that. Also, I think, superficial, or I think as you grow older, we'll like stuff you see, like I guess like the immature ones, or ones that really like really silly misunderstandings. Like I think it basically just boils down to like it ain't really written that well. And I guess I think the ones I like, I think more specifically is the ones where it's kind of equal, kind of like you were saying, like with Lloyd and like in Spy Family sort of thing, where like both characters they got something they're bringing to the relationship to make it work, and building from there. And I guess one of my favorite ones, which has like that in there, is in Clannad. Clannad is mainly Clannad after story.
I knew we were gonna bring that up.
Yeah, because I think that's what it is as well. Like the whole family dynamic as well. So it's not only they build each other up; it kind of, because of that, it helps build up like maybe the community they're in, the people that are around, and helps grow that as well. I think that's what I like. Yes, I think Clannad after story is a really good example, because it goes beyond just the they're together now. It kind of actually explores that, and yeah.
Can I mention one more dynamic that I like? And I mean, I think this could be a conversation by itself as well. Age gap dynamics. What do you? No. Hold up. Of two consenting adults, but age gap. Like,
I mean, I really don't care. I'm not saying I don't care. Yeah. I don't get the same emotions most people have over it, because I'm like, there's usually some more underlying logic to it, and then like there's people's own hang-ups. So I'm like, if they're adults, I really don't care what people do.
Yeah.
I agree on that to some extent.
I mean, unless it's something like Usagi Drop, where it's the adult marrying the child he was supposed to be, like raising as his surrogate daughter.
Okay, technically, so that's not in the same.
Yeah, that's not what I mean. That is not what I mean at all.
That's not what I'm talking about either.
I know. I just wanted to take the take a shot at Usagi.
Quick gut punch at
Usagi. Just one quick stab.
I've never heard of that to begin with. Okay, I gotta because of you. I have to look up weird stuff now. Usagi. What?
No, don't look it up. Don't look it up.
Just
because the anime is wholesome. The anime is really wholesome. But
wait, how do I spell this? How do I spell this? Because
Usagi.
Yeah, Usagi.
I'll spell it for you. It's easier if I just do it here. Anyway, but
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. But yeah, the thing is that with age gap, like it's good you mentioned adults, but I do gotta say that if the gap is too wide, it gets really creepy. I need to mention that.
Why?
Well, yeah, that's why.
I asked the question of why. Why does it get creepy to you?
Like, for example, if someone is 22 and someone is 50, I would be a little concerned.
Why?
I would say.
Why?
Because it feels essentially like...
But they're two adults.
I don't know.
And they're consenting.
Yeah, like that's the reason why I say why to that stuff, because I've thought about it, and like I used to be, and then I thought, I was like, you know what? Why do I care? It has nothing to do with me and everything like that. I don't...
Yeah, but
I started thinking on it. I was like, maybe this is a me problem, because it's like they're not harming anyone, and stuff like that. And like I don't know, like I switched to like judging it to. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna reflect on myself. And I actually went through and questioned it, and I was like, does it really matter? I mean, if they're happy and they both are able to they can consent to whatever they want, why does it matter? I was like, it's not really my approval doesn't matter and stuff like that.
Chances are in that
repeat
situation.
Kite's point as well, because Kite, you mentioned how like it's weird. It's a weird concept, but people can make it work, right? Writers often make those type of relationship works. It's obviously on paper, maybe it's weird, but I've often seen it kind of work, or at least I always think that those type of dynamics are kind of I don't know, exciting. it could be young. What was it? It could be a young guy and an older woman. Usually for me, it's that scenario because I don't know, I just like mature women. That's
I think
no.
I think let's let Echoes have the floor.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah,
sure. Not saying it doesn't go all the way around, but the thing is that when I think of really large dynamics, typically older man, younger woman, right?
I mean,
it kind of feels what?
There's a reason why that dynamic does exist. Like,
yeah,
it's been when it comes to guys. It's pretty much women. Usually, when like a younger woman goes for an older guy, because like women do mature faster and stuff like that. And so they're typically going to look for someone who's more established and stuff like that and everything like that, that they feel they can operate equal level and everything like that. So we'll go for older guys. That's the reason why that dynamic exists and everything like that. For guys, as guys tend to, but it varies, of course. Like I'm being very reductive and generalizing and stuff like that. Tend to look towards girls who are more younger. Don't go too young, obviously, but like more younger and everything like that because of the ability, like more likely to when it comes to pregnancy and all that type of stuff. It's biological, stupid stuff.
Yes, but the biology
the fertility thing is what is the point. Well. Because the thing is that women age out, so after a certain age, it's more difficult to become pregnant. That is a biological thing.
Yeah,
right? But also the issue is that older guys who chase younger women. I'm not saying this is always the case, but I'm saying that it is often they only look for them as a way of having children, and because they are generally have not had minimal or have little relationships before, while older women tend to be considered damaged goods.
Yeah,
you get what I mean, right?
Oh yeah, no, if I went through let's say I went through all the dating stuff from the worst possible perspective on everybody. Like if I say younger women chasing men are doing it only for their status and the stupid concept of hypergamy, which I have disagreements there. And like I find that's when people focus on that perspective, like you can look at everything from the worst perspective possible from either view. And that's the reason why I usually am like, I can see it from the worst possible perspective either way or best. So that's why I usually just try and stay out of it. But that's just
there's always going to be a worse example, even in a normal, safe relationship in everyone's perspective. There's always going to be someone who's going to be a worse example for X, Y, Z reason. So you just got to look at what generally works. One, what's legally allowed, and two, what generally works, and three, you let the people who are adults make the decisions for themselves, and then everyone else is kind of like they have their family and they have their people there. If there is an issue, I imagine they have people they can fall on.
Also, now that I've read over what this soggy drop is, this is disturbing, and I don't like this.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
I apologize. I apologize. It's so bad. Like it started out perfectly fine, but then the author, I don't know what woke up in the author partway through, but I don't want any of that.
But oops, sorry.
Oh no, you're good.
But I just want to mention at least for at least when it comes to age gap romances, right? I'm usually fine. This is just typical humans, right? Typical humans.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not including Supernatural because that's its own genre, okay? Typical human people, right? But the thing is, when it comes to these romances, right? Like I don't think anything bigger than 10 to 15 years is acceptable, essentially. I usually use 10 as a good one. I personally prefer it. I think that is at least the most I could personally handle. But anything too big, it gets sort of I would honestly just feel disgusted by the whole thing. Just because as mentioned, when with women and older guys or younger guys with older women, right? It can be seen as to some extent a fantasy. And also it could have a lot of issues as well, but I do have to say that most of the reasons why older guys who chase young women is due to fertility, typically, because the fact that once you're past 30, 35 or so, it's harder to have children.
And then the other reason why is because there tend to be less baggage and like all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, exactly that too. Because I'm somewhat influenced by a manga I've read as well. Not saying that this is a common belief. This was like essentially takes 200 years ago. But I was reading a manga where they had a panel where these guys were talking about their very young wives. These guys were in their 40s or 50s. And then these women were at least below 20. And they were saying, okay, so I'm glad I had a very young wife so she can bear me a lot of children. Obviously, that's taken place within the culture, so that's to keep in mind as well. But also, they mentioned how a woman who was 20 years old was considered too old. So I can't help but feel that. At least I've had some feelings with that dynamic. Well, oh no, I have no issue with that as much. Essentially, my issue is mostly with people who are barely above, like, around their 20s with someone far older. Like, usually around, like, 40, 50.
I know, it sounds to me, I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds more to me like you have an issue with at least the things you've seen of how people portray it, where it's only because they are young and give birth. Whereas, well, in my head it's like, well, couldn't it be more than one reason? They grew, they came to know each other, they got into a relationship, they like each other, and those are another a list of other things that worked for them. Like like you could say, if someone to have like two people who they relationship with, who they're looking to marry, or I can say marry because it's likely I'd go through marriage, so dating like that. And one was like 30, 40 or near their age, and they got along with them just fine. But then another one was younger, they got along with them just fine, and they is more likely to be able to have children. Wouldn't it just makes more sense to go for the second option if all things were equal? Besides age.
The thing is that it's usually not equal. That's the thing.
I mean, there's usually
in terms of getting along and everything else.
I mean, I think true equality is impossible. Like, I don't really focus on equal in the way most people do. It's more or less like how well does something satisfy? Because let's say with those guys who chase young women, stuff like that, the young women aren't going to respond anyway unless they have stuff they want from them to begin with. And usually that means those young women are trying to get something out of it to begin with. So both of them are trying to see something. That's the reason why I don't like obsessed with it, because I'm like, I could easily flip the script and be like, I remember I made a joke about this one time because someone was Henry Cavill for dating some chick, and I was like, yeah. They're like, man. So I was like, yeah, we should shame that woman for trying to take all his money and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, it's a script. Like, I don't actually believe that, obviously, but I'm like, it was my way of pointing out that we can easily flip dynamics to try and be critical of either side on stuff like that, and like ultimately people. Oops. But like that pretty much. That's why I could see, like, usually I find people who are focused on that, both sides tend to be really shallow. So I'm admittedly less empathetic to either side in those cases because I feel both sides are shallow anyway. So I'm just like, let them both screw up each other. I really don't care. But that's part of me being a bit mean and cruel at times. But yeah, like, I admittedly, in this case, I have no sympathy for either side, kind of falls into thing. So that's why I'm in my bias right there, where I'm just like, I recognize the shallowness of both sides and how it's just shallow people ending up with shallow people. And we just don't criticize the shallowness of one as much as we do the other.
Yeah, they definitely do exist. But yeah, no, I guess one of my thoughts, we kind of was touching upon this before, where there needs to be this mutual back and forth of what the mutual benefit from both of them. And that benefit may not be equal in your eyes from the outside, but there'll be a reason why, if they're two consenting adults, why they agree to be with each other. Well, they must find something they find, okay, this is worth me doing, vice versa, both sides, not just a one-sided thing.
Well, the way how I see it, I can kind of see the merit on both ends of the conversation. Like, on one hand, depending on how you look at it, yes, it's kind of an exploitative aspect, and it's kind of something that's kind of always been present in our society. I don't think it's going away anytime soon, because the thing is, while it is true that women can mature a lot faster than men can, the fact remains is that even when a woman is
that's just physically often as well. So
right, Right. But the thing with that is, even if someone is within around the age of 21 or 22, you can't really put them in a position where they may 100% know better, or they should be able to understand this or that. It really does not work that way most of the time. It's like, I really don't want to have to bring a conversation like this up when we're mostly just discussing like things like, I don't know, what's the word for it, like we're discussing romance and everything. But Boogie298 is currently dating a girl who is in her 20s, and he is well up in his 50s at this point, from what I understand.
I don't know who those are.
Yeah, I know
celebrities.
about the story.
If it's celebrities, I don't really respect any celebrity most of the time because they're shallow. Well, I don't know. I have to know them most of the time, but 9 times out of 10, they're shallow people anyway.
The reason I bring this up is because I feel when you start to look at things on a case by case basis, on top of everything else, you can kind of see why this is a little bit of a, dare I say, kind of like a borderline taboo. Because the thing about this, fundamentally, we have a situation where we're talking about consenting adults and they should know better. Consenting adults can still make horrible mistakes and terrible decisions.
Oh yeah,
yes,
they can still do that.
That's the reason. I think part of being an adult is sometimes you make those decisions and like you learn that things aren't always going to be perfect, and you just have to learn how to work with that and everything like that.
Exactly.
And even when we mentioned the whole maturity thing, like it very like yes, like girls do mature fast and stuff like that. I'll fully agree. I fully agree with that. I can also see I've run into many girls who are very immature in their own ways. Like I kind of compared it. I was like, it's like dealing with sprinters, in that you can get this further ahead, and then like I noticed there's people who just kind of stop maturing and stuff like that. And then I get people who
because like he's making
like this is why I like try and judge more of an independent basis instead of just being like all based down on judging this one thing. Because I'm like, I've seen all kinds of different dynamics and stuff like that, and I just don't like. I can understand someone else feeling strong about. It's just that I don't really feel it's my place to judge because I can't. Like I'm not the best judge of everything, so I just try to do the best what I can with my own life, ultimately, in certain things.
Yeah. Right. Like, I mean, like my thing is, if two consenting parties are perfectly fine with it, I don't see a problem. But at the same time, though, I'd be lying if I said that alarm bells don't go off in my head whenever I hear about large age gaps. Because the thing is, there is usually an exploitative situation going on there. Either if you see, this is why we have the whole gold digger thing. Like we will mention a gold digger thing, but sometimes it's very rare that we'll mention, okay, there's a girl here and she's getting involved with a dude who's like way older than her. He may have a lot of money and she might be using him probably, but I feel that that's probably the shorthand that we go to a little too often in some cases.
That's why I say I feel they're both just being shallow ultimately. It's why I said I'm admittedly not that sympathetic. Admittedly it could be something. It's just a case of like I see the shallowness in both ends. And that's why I'm like, they're just both using it for something. Like, I view them both being transactional about stuff. And that's why I'm like, look, sucks for you all if your transaction doesn't work. I personally don't care for it either way, but whatever.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate aspect that most of us, we don't have a lot of control over it. We can't really determine what people can or cannot do in most relationships. That's completely outside of everyone's purview. But personally, it's a situation where
I'll go one further and say I don't think unless you know them and you're in there, involved with them, they're considered adults. You don't know what they're doing. You don't know what's going on with them unless you're with them. So, far as I'm concerned, like I said, it's just but they consent and they're thing with it. Then it's unless you know something's gone wrong, or again, it's transactional. If it's transactional things are a thing that happen. Then I say good luck to you both. Like you're both being fools. Congratulations. But humans do stupid things. But I wouldn't, at least personally, I wouldn't let that be a deterrent to say, oh, this thing doesn't work, because it does. It's been
because like we've mentioned before, any one of these dynamics can work. Even these dynamics that we consider problematic, they can work if they're portrayed well. My thing is, it shouldn't really be a shorthand for how reality ought to work. Because even though I've mentioned that you can make any dynamic within a story work, I still feel that there's some taboos that you likely probably should not cross, mainly because of the societal impact. This is one of the reasons why I apologize in advance for bringing this story up. This is one of the reasons why Lolita is as important as a tale as it is. Because a lot of people some people took Lolita as like an actual romance story at the time. Some people took it as a romance story. When in all actuality, Lolita is not a romance story. It is a cautionary tale. It's a warning of what happens when a man's desires can go unchecked, and when parents become too neglectful to do anything in relation to actually calming or quelling a situation. And the thing about the story is that it just gets progressively more and more depraved in what happens, but yet people still treated it like it was a romance story. Like, you can't really control the impact of how your story is seen or viewed, but the fact of the matter is there has to be some responsibility and onus on the author's end to ensure that their plans or how they've written their story does not get misinterpreted by the worst people. Because I think that's what Echoes' main concern is on this subject that we're referring to.
I don't know. I get what you're saying in terms of the situation where things go horribly wrong, but I wouldn't attribute that to the age.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's just more common, which, as much as I like to say otherwise, like, it does exist for a reason. So, like, I can say in general, like, age gaps, I'm just essentially, it's very hit or miss for me. It's not something I'll always like, nor will I always dislike. But it's really up to how it's done, as mentioned. But anything with a very older man in a much younger woman, I will not like. That's sadly just.
I just remember. You know what I really don't like? I just thought about this because I hate this. I hate the stupid as the joke goes. The 1,000-year-old lowly stuff. Now, because you mentioned Lolita, I hate that stuff so much. It is so weird.
We walked that one rabbit hole, put us another rabbit hole.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I'm like, what the heck? This is weird. Like,
I don't think there's much to say about it.
I'm not like, I will let people fantasize whatever weird stuff they want, but I'm like, that's where I'm supposed to like, yeah, this is a line for me. This is weird. I don't like this.
So I have a take on this. So me personally, I don't like it either. I don't think I ever will. I'm not into it personally. But my thing is, I will not judge you for liking it. Okay, I probably will. I will not make it a case to throw it back in your face. But I'm gonna call a spade a spade. The fact of the matter is, like I said, when it comes to like romance and everything, if this is the kind of thing that you like and everything, perfectly valid, but it's still highly unusual no matter how I look at it.
I'm able to still discern fiction from reality. I'm like, as long as you're doing weird stuff in reality, I don't care ultimately.
Yeah,
but I do have my thing. I'm like, this feels weird.
But there's a point to be had. Like, if this is the kind of stuff that you like, right? That you're attributing to like a drawing and everything, I would like to think that what you find arousing or enthralling is something that you'd probably be drawn to in real life in some shape or form.
That's the scary thing. With anything, it gets close to CP. You know,
exactly.
Yeah, I'll make an exception, by the way, or in that scenario, because I agree. But I will make an exception. Kiss Shot from what was it? Bakemonogatari, that series, or the Monogatari series. Kiss Shot has like an adult form, and I just like the adult form of Kiss Shot. I'm just saying. That's it. That's it. Otherwise, I don't.
I guess it's the blonde
the blonde girl who's like also like the whole 1,000-year-old. She's like the
because I think it's
definition, but she has an adult form, and I like that form of her. Like that's it.
Yeah, like the thing is, we cannot. How did we get onto Lolly when we're talking?
I am
because you had the brain. That's why. It planted into my mind.
Like
part of it.
What the hell? I mean, I guess this can play a role in this topic as well, because how we write these kind of stories, our proclivities are going to show up in them in some shape or form. So when the subject of Lolly enters a conversation, I feel it's natural for some people to feel some kind of aversion to it. Like I can feel an aversion to it. I personally probably wouldn't want anyone who's into lolly anywhere near any of my children. Personally, I wouldn't want that. But at the same time, and this is a very maybe not an unfortunate reality because I can't frame it like this. There are some women out there who do not get much taller than children, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
There are some, essentially, like especially since women in general tend to be shorter anyway. Like, and even I personally am not very tall, so that's sadly a thing. But I do have to say that that's more. It's like, it's like a biological thing at that point. That's not really an issue because they're technically older. They just have, they're just shorter. That's a little. The difference is actually like a body of a child. That's different.
Right.
That's what I mean. Yeah, like I don't mind someone being short, but no, it's more like I specifically mean when a character is 100% portrayed like very childlike and stuff like that. That's still like, but she's actually 1,000 or something like that. I'm like, that's kind of weird to me. Then that's like,
that's the part. That's trying to have the cake and eat it too, and you should.
Yeah, like, I'm very, I'm very like as a writer, I'm very, Like when it comes to being a writer, and it's like people do. I'm honestly very libertarian about stuff in that I won't get in people's way and stuff like that. I mean, we see that even on my channel. Like, I don't really care what someone will do and everything like that, even if I don't exactly want to do it myself, my personal standards. Mm-hmm. But yeah, even then, I'm still like, I don't really feel okay about, like, for once I gotta step in a little bit and pull back that maybe I shouldn't help with this or whatever. And but I recognize But I do recognize the idea of like I don't necessarily see someone like if it does feel weird to me. I'm like I can recognize maybe there's stuff going on in their head that's different than what I may see. Like I'm not going to assume the absolute worst about people and everything. Always, I don't like to do that because I like to try and understand perspectives and stuff like that. And I do know the idea of double consciousness. It's like for instance, I'm not into murder and stuff like that. I read very murder like. Let's see. Yesterday, I was working out a whole way to murder somebody with a sniper gun and stuff like that. And but I'm not actually into murder and stuff like that. I'm very against it, and I hate when people assume that I like all this dark stuff because of that side of me alone. But it still does. I get it. Like I get the whole feeling weird about this, while also like maybe this doesn't exactly, but it's weird. Humanity is weird. Why do you think I love psychology so much?
Exactly.
You can't stick us in boxes necessarily in that way, and there is always going to be an exception to a thing sometimes.
There's definitely a lot of nuance to this because as much as like people may like their rapey stories where these characters are toxic or just outright horrible for each other, it's not a shorthand or an indication as to that person's proclivities. Not necessarily. If anything, it's just something that it's an escape. It's like a fantasy. It's like the same reason why you might like some really kinky or violent shit in what you're watching. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to go out there and do that IRL. It's the same reasons why video games by themselves don't actually make people violent. It's like, is your buddy a little weird for liking drawn pictures of, like prepubescent anime girls in sexual situations? Are they weird for that? Yeah, kinda. I mean, I can't say otherwise. I'd be an idiot if I said otherwise. But at the same time, though, it doesn't necessarily prove anything. Not literally, anyway. It doesn't really prove anything. There are some instances where you can prove it, but there's also incidents where the people who speak the loudest about it being bad turn out to have some really nasty skeletons in their closet too. The best way to really handle this situation is to treat it on a case by case, because I feel the last thing that people ought to do in this situation, despite how I feel about how I like relationships being portrayed, I don't really think it's for me to tell people how to write them either. I would rather people be able to have the ability to do what they want as openly as they can, and if it is bad, we should be able to criticize it equally.
Yeah, you should have to deduct from it from there on out.
Yeah, that kind of sums up why I have my whole libertarian views in that. Like I don't like to try and control people, even if I don't think everything is always the best decision.
Exactly.
And I kind of was like, I mean,
I have such weird views at times when people actually get into them.
I mean, if you ask me too, you're probably gonna get that. Like I don't know, I don't even know what I call myself. I don't know if I'm lefty, libertarian, socialist, commie. Well,
libertarian aspect. I have a mixture of things.
Yeah, like I don't know. Well, I'm probably not a commie, but I'm probably leaning more towards libertarian at this point. But even then, I really don't think
you are a critical thinking human being.
Basically, yeah, that's what
that sums it up.
Yeah, that sums it up.
And nuance.
I'd rather consider the nuances of things. I mean, even if I'm immediately put off by something, I at least will try to understand it. It's why I chose to use Twilight as an example. I am fundamentally opposed to how Twilight portrays things. But I feel that it is imperative for us to understand why it works the way it does for people and why it has the influence. Because, like, it's easy to dismiss things as a trashy romance novel, but what exactly makes it trashy in the first place? And if it's trashy, why do people keep coming back to it? Well, we kind of already have an answer for it. Like, why do people think Lolly is like, I don't know, why are people into Lolly? I mean, I can't speak from the perspective of someone who's into it, and I don't think I want to either. But there has to be a reason why people like it, and it's probably not for the surface level reasons that people think. There's likely another reason that I am probably just not capable of understanding because I'm just not into it personally. Now, granted, maybe I might be a lolicon adjacent because I do happen to like Homura from Madoka Magica. But I think I am personally more attracted to a version of her that is more mature than her in her current form. But again, that is just me. I cannot speak to people who are into it. The most I can really say in this situation is if this is something that you are going to portray and if this is something that you are into, please don't be freaking weird about it, dude, because that's probably what scares people in the first place.
Yeah, I want to mention something as well. At least with the lolicon type of thing. I do think that there's definitely like as mentioned with Twilight, there's an audience for this type of stuff. The issue is more like, I mean, at least I'm assuming it's a cuteness thing, but then that also can turn to sexual appeal for whatever reason. I can't really think about it. But regardless, I think how do I describe it? I think it's sadly something that is just it's something that you have to be careful with because it's so close to CP, where there are people who will actually act on their urges, and that's something to be aware of. But as mentioned, if it's like a fantasy, right? If it's stuck as a fantasy, that's fine. The difference is whether it actually goes into something more real, and then that's the scary part.
That is a slippery slope. I don't know. Me personally, because like obviously, well, the place we live in and like how the rules are, I'm like, okay, well, this is how they do certain things. But I am aware of like these, like especially with like what you're saying here. I don't say I've got family behind me, but like those things, it is a slippery slope. And sometimes with me, when it comes to certain things, I think sometimes having something to like get like if there is some bad in it, sometimes it's safer to just not have it there. But again, with this, because our rules are here and everything, I'm just like, okay, well, best thing to do is just understand that not all things are just, it's because of X reason. Like a good example I was thinking is maybe because no two people can go through the same experience and come out with two different things. And for example, maybe one piece of media which someone watched and they thought, this makes me feel bad, this makes me feel disgusting. And maybe someone else has been through an experience where that maybe that piece of media probably helped them cope. Like maybe I do it with you probably could like put in like a explicit or something dark or explicit that I don't want to like say too explicit, but I think you probably get the idea. Like maybe someone can go see a piece of media and that probably helps them cope with something they've been through, where someone else is seeing it'll make them feel disgusted and stuff. So
I really think a lot of stuff does ultimately come down to like both the individual case by case experience and stuff like that. Like for people who goes too far, they tend to have already gone too far and like have various patterns and stuff like that in their personal life anyway. So like
yeah.
So like I think there's a difference. As I said, it comes down to those. Really think it comes down to being able to discern the difference between fiction and actual reality and stuff like that. Like, I mean, as I came back to, like I said, I read some things that I'm like, no, this is an absolute train wreck. I know this is terrible and all stuff's going on and like that. But I would never actually do any of that stuff in real life or think it's ideal because I'm self-aware that what like the actual experiences and everything like that, and I can discern the difference. That I think just comes down to maturity, honestly, though. I think being able to discern the difference between fiction and reality is a very maturity type thing, which is why people on Twitter can't do it. Bye.
It's a really good point, and I think this kind of brings me back to like the point of the stories in general. Like, why do we write stories? Why do we enjoy them? It's usually because it has experiences we don't experience ourselves. You know, and I think being cognizant of that, and trying to write something honestly sometimes require you, depending on what you're doing, but require you to touch on subjects where some people not going to feel comfortable with. But then I think it's down to the person to kind of figure out whether they're okay with this or not. It doesn't work with them, doesn't read them. It's and like
yeah.
But yeah. Cool.
I'm personally. I don't know. I might head out soon.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know if we're gonna wrap up, but I might have.
Yeah, I was actually about to ask about like, you got any closing statements? Because I think we covered more than I thought we would.
Indeed, actually,
from the original topic.
I'm not gonna complain because it's all tied to the same thing when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's tied to perception, choices, and just how you go about interpreting this. So yeah, I don't really. I mean, it is a bit of a departure, yes, but I'm not exactly offended by it either.
Yeah, no, I'll say it was welcome to me.
Okay.
Say, got any closing thoughts?
People, I got nothing that I haven't already said, or anything from like romance dynamics on how to actually write them. I'll discuss that. I have a lot of that coming up on my channel soon for anyone who does want to check that out. Since I love doing my whole practical tips and all the type of stuff like that and various topics. So yeah, I have a lot there. I'm just still working through various ideas and stuff like that.
My closing thoughts are, well, I mean, mainly I just want to say I do want to say sorry if I did make you uncomfortable, Water. with the whole, I don't know, age gap. I didn't expect that.
No, it's fine. Like I don't think it's a bad topic to bring up. I just had to mention it just because it's something I just feel strongly about.
Which is fair.
Yeah,
That's
which
fair.
makes sense.
I just like pushing stuff just to see what happens when people like, because I just like critical thinking, and so I'm always about trying to challenge thoughts and everything like that, even with my own thoughts and stuff like that all the time.
I don't know. I just like mature women. That's why. That's it.
I like my wife.
It is a kink.
I mean, I don't know. I just had. It's mainly the fantasy of being the young guy, but that's it. That's all it is, honestly. But otherwise,
Hex.
Oh yeah, and then I'll also mention this from RT as well, since our RT not talking.
Yeah, he talked on.
Nobody mentioned this, but harems are generally bad. At least I don't like them. I want to at least voice that for him.
That's
to be honest, for me, it's a guilty pleasure, but objectively, it's pretty bad.
Most harems are guilty pleasures.
Most harems are pretty schlocky, but they can be at least somewhat enthralling, because in that case you have like a wide range of character dynamics that you can play into. Like my favorite example I might go to is Tenchi Muyo, aka the only good harem that you should probably watch.
I will debate you that it is actually.
I have one more. Yeah, I think about to say.
I don't even like that.
Yeah, I think we had this conversation before. But yeah,
if I simplify things,
bring it on.
If I make things reductive, I remember why I mentioned. I would say like the harem stuff is primarily to appeal to guys as much as Beauty and the Beast is for like chicks and stuff like that, varying. And that's being super reductive. I was about to come back to it. I've also seen I have seen harems for girls and stuff like that, which that's a whole other thing. And like. But then again, like I'm not the biggest expert on this stuff. All I know is the best hammer I've ever seen was real quick. Actually, it was not even focused on the romance itself, and that's kind of what made it interesting because it showed that it was one a political type thing, and it showed how all these people were in this very terrible situation with each other and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, this is a mess. I kind of want to watch for how this plays out. Let's. I like drama.
What show was it?
What?
Oh, it was a game. Suikoden Tier Crease.
Suikoden Tier Crease. Sick.
All right, guys. This has been another episode of the Lounge Podcast. Thank you for tuning. Yeah, don't forget to leave a like and comment on the video.
Like and subscribe.
And yeah, so check out Mark's channel. Like he does really awesome stuff.
Oh yeah, check out Mark.
Sorry, Mark. I have all kinds of videos. I release like for a week now.
His stuff is incredible. Please, you will not be disappointed.
Okay, all right. And on that note, see you next time. Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Take care.